So an education app has become one of the biggest entertainment accounts on TikTok, and it was absolutely not by teaching anyone how to speak a language. It was by threatening users, having crushes on celebrities, and beefing with fake lawyers. They're not just grabbing attention on social, they're actually turning it into profit, and they are actually building their business. And that's what we're going to discuss today. How did Duolingo transform just another forgettable teaching app into a 16 million following cultural phenomenon? And I say 16 million, I think that is old. I think it is way higher now. They did that by taking a very risky pivot that could have affected their credibility, but instead it turned what seemed to be a chaotic social approach is actually a very strategic one. So there is a method to their madness. They use this quote-unquote chaos to build their business. So before 2021, Duolingo's TikTok was nothing special. It was like every other boring brand TikTok. Safe posts, polished ads that no one wants to watch. It was boring, and it was as good as if it wasn't there. There's no point to it. It wasn't bringing in any real benefits for the most part. In 2021 is when they started making their switch from TikTok to something a little more engaging. It's because they realized something. As a business, you look at yourself, who are your competitors? That's the question you ask. Who are you competing with? And of course, for the longest time, they were thinking Babbel, Rosetta Stone, other language learning platforms, apps, programs. But actually, they thought, our app needs attention to succeed. And so they asked themselves, where is the attention? They realized it was actually on TikTok. Their users were on the app of TikTok rather than the app of Duolingo. And that's when they decided, we need to go on TikTok and take the attention from there onto their own app, which was a pretty brilliant thought to approach it in that way. I'm sure not many app-based or even online-based programs or businesses think in that way, because that is exactly true. Instead of being on your platform, they are on TikTok, on Instagram, on these social platforms. That is where they spend a majority of their time. Your customers are just sitting there waiting for you to go take them. All right, so as they started leaning into relevant content, it started with, leaning into trends a little bit, light humor, pushing buttons here and there, nothing too crazy. Engagement did improve when they noticed this, but what took them to the next level is when they took their mascot, Duo, the big bird, and they started treating him like a celebrity. And that was able to create a connection with the viewer way stronger than just the platform trying to teach you how to speak a language, or posting about Happy National Learning Day, or do your lesson today. It's a little bit more boring. Creating this mascot to make him do things that other people would relate to that find funny was a perfect way in. And it was a funny story. I forget her name, but the social media manager at the time, the one who kind of sparked this whole change in their company, as they started doing more fun stuff and ramping it up, she was walking past the mascot and she thought, that would be funny if we brought him to social. Because prior to that, that mascot was just something they brought to corporate events, to shows, and to things that could just use some branding. But instead, took a turn and used him as a celebrity. And that's where things got really, really interesting, because they had series where he was in love with Dua Lipa, the singer. They would roast users. It was building fake drama with the lawyer Steve. That is hilarious. When a company could play around like that to such a serious extent where they get the lawyer involved because this bird named Duo would take too many risks, he would do risky things, he was always getting into trouble, that really brings it closer to the viewer, because now the viewer feels like they can relate to this bird. Because, we all have our fun side, our letting loose, especially with the younger demographic that Duolingo was capturing. This was a perfect way into it. With this influencer style approach, they started building actual storylines. Yes, it seems like chaos. It seems like they were just doing funny stuff for the sake of it. But they were actually building lore for this bird, for this character that they have created now, and has seemingly over the years become an actual celebrity. They would create storylines, and the more that the users would get into them and become interested in them, they built an anticipation. So yes, they were capturing that audience. They were capturing that retention, that viewership. People wanted to see what they were going to do, to the point where they were waiting to see what they would do next. They were actually anticipating their next post and seeing what was going to happen. And to be in that position in and of itself, where people are actually waiting for you to take a step, do the next thing, you've put yourself in a very, very good position, because that means you are in their mind even when you're not in front of them. So that is a very good place to be for Duolingo and this approach of the storytelling. Because even people, yes, it's good when they anticipate you, but even the other way around, when if someone comes across your video, they find it very funny and they want to know, like, where did this stem from? Or like they realize it's in the middle of a series, they would actually go to your profile and click through and catch up and actually view the videos you posted in the past. So it's a win-win scenario in this way. I touched on before how Duolingo's goal wasn't necessarily just to get views on social, just to be relevant and cool. This chaos, the strategic chaos, actually directly correlates to their business goals. Each post, whether it's subtly or not, goes back to their one goal of getting a user onto their platform, reminding them to do their daily lesson. Daily lesson is Duolingo's I guess program that builds a streak, so you go on every single day to build your streak of learning this language. And their social content, no matter how crazy it was, always stemmed back to, in some way, whether it's the post copy, whether it's in the comments, whether it's in the video, in some way to doing your daily lesson. This kind of brings us to like how they make money. So they realize this is a free app posting free content online. Some people might think, how are these people making money? So they make most of their money on premium memberships. So Duolingo has a free version, but also when you're in the app, it has an upgrade where you can go premium, ads go away, you can do more lessons in a day. And they also, on the free version, sell ad space. So they let other companies run ads on their platform, which brings them revenue. So that is how they make their money. Their data shows, when they get a certain amount of downloads, in some way or another, a percentage of those downloads are gonna upgrade to a premium membership. Yes, they do make ads. They do make money on the ads on the platform, but they make more money when people go upgrade to premium. So they notice that when people join, a certain percentage always upgrade to premium one way or another, okay, in a certain time frame. So they realize, okay, if we get people to download our app and they use it, a certain percentage will upgrade them to premium. So in that case, when they were going viral, they were seeing a huge uptick in downloads and in app usage. So it was doing exactly what they wanted to do. It was getting their attention, getting them on the app to do their daily lesson, or introducing someone to the app to start using it, and then a percentage of those users would upgrade to a premium membership, okay? So that's how we're making money. So these skits and these viral moments and this virality that they have absolutely resulted in an increase in money, in moolah. They were starting to make some real money, and they have been growing since they started blowing up on social. So in less than 3 years from starting, riskier, more fun, more engaging approach, storytelling approach, in 3 years, they built to over 16 million followers, which is in general just a crazy amount of growth in such a short time. Recently, they've gotten into some turmoil, Duolingo as a company, a few months ago, and it's because the founder said they are going to take a more of an AI approach as they're looking to grow. And a lot of people are against AI for, their reasons. They let Duolingo know in the comments. Duo is actually not responding to any comments right now. They're staying away. They're just going to keep pushing on. But I'm even seeing some comments. And this is the weirdest thing. Oh, I really love Duolingo social media. I'm so sad this happened. And that, it's the same company. The social team is different, but people have separated the company from the social, and that is basically creating something in and of itself, which is so valuable. So the owl is his own freaking celebrity at this point. To create interesting, engaging content around something interesting of your business is so important, because as a language learning app, they could have, as most companies do, okay, we teach language, so let's approach social trying to do what we do and teach language. A lot of people approach social like that, and it's not always engaging. Now, I will say there are some cases where variations of that do succeed, but not in this way, number one, and a lot of time people do it in the wrong way. So you don't want to take a boring approach, like let's try to teach them about language on TikTok, when people aren't there to learn language on TikTok. People are on TikTok to be entertained, and that is the angle they took, and that is the angle that they succeeded at, even though they are in some turmoil right now. So a couple lessons I do want to pull from this case study overall is that, number one, unhinged doesn't necessarily mean random. It looks chaotic, it looks random, it looks even confusing to some people, but there is a method to the madness. When you're in this level of culture, they are at the front lines of culture, truly. They're as relevant as can be when it comes to brands on TikTok. And in the strategic chaos, it always leads back to a business goal of getting attention and getting those downloads. So it always circled back. When approaching social from a brand's perspective, you have to look at it as a whole, the brand as a whole, and say, what can I highlight that can actually be interesting? What can we do that is interesting? And of course, always, always, always builds towards your business goals. That is always going to be the key. It's like with brands, it's always the key. It should never be anything but that. In some way, it should build towards your business goals. And it's our job as marketers to pull the right things forward and shine them in a light. Duolingo did that with their mascot. They did that with an interesting part of a seemingly boring business. Yeah, their goal is to make language learning fun. So that's the angle they took with the social. They want to be fun on social, and they found their vehicle, which was the bird, to do so. Beautifully done. And I want to compare this to like another business. Yeah, some may, negative people may say, oh, they're lucky they had this mascot that could have done this and that and that and that. This works for any business in the world. There was a law firm dealt with injuries, unjust injuries, and they help you win money for your injuries. Our goal is to gain clients so we can represent them and make them money, and we take a percentage. Okay, so that should be the premise of their social. So let's say they do skits and the lawyer is waiting for someone to get injured, maybe at a park, and as soon as someone gets injured, he runs up to and tries to pitch to them and make it a comedy style skit. Pair with some influencers or make it a fun angle that is almost leaning into the irony of their service where like, we want you to get injured, so we want to make money. Yeah, that's a risky angle, maybe not the best angle, and that's just an example. And if you did that and that doesn't work, try something else and something else and something else until something works. Because let's say you did lean into that series and it did work. I guarantee you, if people liked you on social and they got injured, who would come to mind first? The funny guy on social, the funny team on social, the funny firm on social. I say funny, there's a lot of emotions you can lean into, but this keeps us top of mind. There's a lot of people who want to learn languages. If they know Duolingo on TikTok, I guarantee it's the first one they're going to go with. So that is a key thing to remember here. Relevancy, but tied back to business goals, okay? Okay, thank you for tuning in. Next episode, we're going to cover Chili's and how they leverage TikTok and social overall to do absolutely absurd things with their business and see levels of growth they haven't seen in years. And that's next episode, so tune into that.